Natalya, good morning. And what are you doing in Saudi Arabia today?
So WWE is opening up a huge, like, it's almost like a theme park here in Riyadh. So it's like a WWE themed like park where it's like you can build your own superstar and you can walk down a ramp and you could see what Gorilla is like. It's all basically a simulated show, but like for a fan to walk through and to be a part of. It's almost like an experience without actually even being at a show. It's like a museum, but like a theme park combined. So it's really cool. They've been working on it for months, and it's from what I understand, it's nearly $1 billion for them to put this together in Saudi
Wow.
Arabia. Yeah, and it's all basically just dedicated to WWE, the history, the theme of like, for example, there's Undertaker's graveyard, and there's a like a ramp that you walk down so you can feel what it's like to be a superstar walking out to the ring, and there's an actual WWE ring, and there's all these different like themes that they have. So I'm excited to see it. I love this kind of stuff, and I think it's really cool that Saudi Arabia is celebrating the men and women of WWE.
Is there the get to hit your finish on Tommy Dreamer because every WWE superstar did?
Yes,
Oh, that's good.
and
That's good attraction.
that we are extra excited about.
One of the reasons you talked about history, one of the reasons we wanted to get you on this morning is the history with you and how long you've been with the WWE, but also with your family, with your dad. You're a third generation superstar. So I'm just interested, like, was there a time in your life where you were like, the last thing I want to do is be a professional wrestler? And then when did it click for you that you wanted to be a superstar?
I I was always fascinated by my family. I think I was like, even when my dad was part of WWE back in the 80s, I always wanted to see what it was that he was doing. I always wanted to kind of like, I always knew it was cool. Like, even when I was going to school and I'd be on the bus and kids would be like, your dad's a WWE wrestler. And I always just felt like it was very special. It was something from a very, like, I cannot remember a moment in my life where my family wasn't talking about wrestling, watching wrestling, surrounded by wrestling. It was like, from my grandfather, Stu Hart, who had a wrestling ring in his backyard. Of course, my grandfather made his own rings. He had one in his yard, and then we had the dungeon in the basement of the house, of the Hart house. There was just never a moment in my life that I wasn't surrounded by it. And then when I was a teenager, and I was into acting, and I wanted to be a model, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was in theater in high school, and of course, I was always intrigued by the industry. But my dad, when I was growing up, he was very protective of my sisters and I being a part of it, because back in the 80s, there wasn't a lot of women's wrestling. There was Miss Elizabeth, Sensational Sherry, Wendy Richter, Luna Vachon. It just wasn't a place for women to really like flourish. So my dad was like, you can't do that. It's just, you'd have to go to Japan and it's dangerous. And like, my dad was just really protective of us, like most dads are. And then my dad started to see how popular women's wrestling became, with Trish Stratus and Lita and Molly Holly and Jazz and Victoria, and these women that really paved the way for it. So then all of a sudden, like, I got the bug. And my dad went from saying, this is too dangerous, you can't do it, to my dad literally became my biggest cheerleader in it.
Natalie, and I know you from the day you got signed to the day you got called up, and then just being there to watch your performance in the Rumble, like just that energy and excitement. You still have that. And I think that's a testament to you of how much you do love it.
I mean, I love it with all my heart. I love everything about it. I feel like I've been fighting for these moments my entire career. Like, I've never taken any of my career for granted in WWE. And I am the longest tenured female that's ever actively worked for WWE for 17 uninterrupted years, which is unheard of to have a career that long. And for me, the biggest piece of advice that I can give anyone, man or woman, as far as not just a career in professional wrestling, but just in general, is to approach every single day like it's your first day of work. And that's something that I've always done. I always go in with that same energy, motivation, enthusiasm. I always bring ideas to the table, suggestions. I always try to think about what it would be like to be the new girl and how I can help the newer women in WWE kind of find their way. If you're a woman coming back from an injury, I always try to take that into consideration. I've had a chance recently to work with Liv Morgan and, like kind of seeing like the light be rejuvenated in her eyes, her excitement to come back. I feed off of all of that. And then having my own ring has been one of the greatest gifts because it continues to breed that excitement for me where I get really excited to work on stuff, but I also get excited to help others. And I feel like energy matches energy. When I see young, talented, hungry men and women come to train with us, it gets me excited. And I think about my own career and like, I just love it. I absolutely love what I do. And I think, Taylor Swift gave when she was winning all those, she won all those Grammys. And she said, when she accepted her speech, she said, I just love what I do. I love what I do. And that's why I keep doing it. And that's for me, like, that's why I've been here so long. That's why I started wrestling when I was 18 years old. I started training with my family in the dungeon. And the reason why I'm doing it is because I just love it and I feel good and I feel healthy and I love seeing other people thrive and I love thriving in it.
You mentioned about how much you love it, but let's talk about how much the fans love you. And then I make no bones about it. You are a foundation of what we see now with the women's division in the WWE. I wish you had more opportunities at Championship Gold, but that's just my opinion. But you did have opportunities and the fans wanted you. Talk about like when you were teaming with Tamina and how the fans rallied around you both so that you had that special moment, because it's been a while since we saw you in that opportunity, but the fans wanted to see you in that opportunity.
Our fans are so amazing because they actually have made so much happen for us. And we're seeing that right now with Cody Rhodes, whereas, the powers that be, they maybe were going in a different direction, but the fans said, no, we want this. Cody deserves this. And everybody rallied behind Cody. I think for me, like, I've been so lucky to have such incredibly loyal fans. And when I look back to that situation with Tamina, when we were fighting to become the women's tag team champions, I fought for that really hard. And I always pick and choose my battles in everything in my life. And I fought extremely hard for us to have that. I just wouldn't stop fighting for it. And I said, Tamina has never held a women's championship in this company. And she is a cornerstone of our locker room internally. She may not get all of her flowers that she has deserved from all the years of hard work, because that's just the way the cookie crumbled, but she deserves it. And I want to be there with her to celebrate her. And I want every match that we had, I was like, I want Tamina to get the win if we ever won. If we lost, I was like, I can afford to take the loss. I've had a ton of wins. And my dad and Brett used to always say, when they were the Hart Foundation, Brett said, if Jim is the one that's losing on our team, if our team has to lose, it crumbles the team. So Brett would always take the losses as far as when they were a tag team, whereas my dad would, whenever they would get a win, Brett's like, Jim has to be the strong one, because if the big guy, the tank, starts losing, then it really affects our team. So for me, Tamina was somebody that I felt like she never got the same love and flowers and opportunities as she deserved. And so when we were going through that with her and I as a tag team, it was one of my greatest, most hard fought battles in the company. And I'm so proud of her for shining. That was the year we came back. Tamina and I had 2 matches at WrestleMania that year. We had, because WrestleMania was 2 nights and it was during the pandemic when we just were reintroduced to fans. And I'll never forget 25,000 fans chanting for Tamina to win at WrestleMania. It's honestly one of the proudest moments of my career, getting to watch her shine.
When it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as somebody that built a foundation for the women's division. Gosh, these are hard-hitting, awesome questions.
I just woke up too.
I know, and I mean,
That's why I'm a professional.
He didn't even
You
drink
are
his
such a
coffee yet.
professional. I love Tommy. But I want to be remembered as a woman that helped build a foundation for the women's division, and not just the women in WWE, but for women all around the world fighting for this dream, because it's taken a large group of women to get to where we are today, to have the things that we have today. It's about the women that fought for this in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, the women that were fighting for a revolution before this revolution was ready for us. Women like Melina and Mickie James and Molly Holly and Victoria. Um, like those are women that don't always get their flowers. They deserve to be celebrated for helping lay down that foundation, because we wouldn't have had the things that, like, we right now, the women, we're almost running out of first evers. We're running out, and that's a good thing. Like, we've seen, the first ever women's Royal Rumble, the first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match, the first ever women's WrestleMania main event. We're first ever women's Hell in a Cell. We would not have got to where we are today without those other people that helped lay down a foundation. So for me to be a building block of this foundation that's been laid down, it's not just about all these awards or championships that you win. It's about giving back and helping build for the next generation. And I feel like, especially with having my ring and with being able to give back to the division the way that I am now, even just welcoming Naomi back in the Royal Rumble, being able to start at number 1 with Naomi, it felt so meaningful to me and so powerful to me, because I felt like she was really back, and I was able to give her this special moment, and she was able to give me a special moment. It was like two really close friends reuniting. But to me, I think building for the future is everything, and I'm so proud that I've been able to do that from the start of my career until now, which has been almost 2 decades.
I don't think your career is ending. I know
No.
you're far off from your last match, but let me ask you this, because you're a writer, you're a journalist. Would you love to be a creative writer for the WWE when your in-ring career is over?
I will tell you, our writing team has an extremely challenging job, because it's so easy. And my husband, TJ, always says this. He always says nobody understands how challenging it is to book a show, because TJ's a producer in WWE, but he works closely with the writers. He works closely with, behind the scenes. And he's like, you never know when somebody's injured, or somebody gets COVID, or somebody's working through a situation, or, somebody, like, we injuries happen in professional wrestling, because it's the nature of the beast, just like in any other sport. But I think the writers have such a challenging job, because there's so many people that you're trying to please in it. And I will be honest, like, at times there's a lot of massaging of egos, because everybody wants to be the best. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to protect their equity. Everybody wants to be on top. Everybody wants to main event WrestleMania. Everybody wants to be the one. But sometimes, you need a bride, and sometimes you need a bridesmaid. So I think the writers have an extremely challenging job, but I don't, but you never say never. For me, I have a lot of really fun things that are coming up that do involve writing, and involve creating, and involve me celebrating my career and celebrating everything that I've accomplished. So never say never as far as, doing more within WWE, but I'm just so excited about growing. I think 2024 for me is the year of growth, more than ever
Okay.
before.
Nice.
Awesome. Would you ever write a book on your career?
I've actually just been approached about writing a book. And I was so impressed with the way Becky Lynch handled herself, and as far as, like, her book and how she kind of talked about it. And, like, just in talking to Becky backstage, like, she's really excited about her book. And I think it's a really honest look at her life and her career and her legacy. And, she still has so much more life left to live, obviously, but to write a book, at a young age, and to talk about, we've done a lot of living. From actually Becky and I, we met over 20 years ago. We met in Vancouver for a show called Supergirls. And we kind of started our wrestling careers at the same time. So when I look back at all the living that we've done, and the roads that we've traveled and stuff, I think Becky's book is going to be incredible. But yes, I was approached to write a book. I'm exploring those options as far as, doing it. I definitely will be writing a book. And like I said, my greatest inspirations are the people that I work with. Becky Lynch. I loved Brett's book. I thought Brett's book was beautiful. He took 10 years to write it. And I said to Brett, I said, your book is so special. It's so powerful because Brett, when Brett was traveling up and down WWE, he actually kept a video. Like he would, after shows, he would talk in a little, instead of keep writing in a diary, he would talk in a little like tape recorder, and he recorded everything of his career, like every night after his matches. And I said to Brett, I'm like, to have the insight to do that to me is really, really cool. So I'm inspired to grow in 2024, and I'm like really looking forward to doing that and surprising you guys with some really cool things.
I love it. And the one, oh, I'm sorry, Tom, but the one thing about Brett's book, which I don't even know if I would be able to do this, is that he talked about the good things, but the bad things, the pitfalls, the mistakes he made. He was extremely honest with his audience. That takes a lot to open yourself up like that and expose your emotions like he did in that book.
It's a lot. I think that's really important. If you're going to write a book, you have to be able to stand in the fire, and that's the thing I do. Brett talks about the things that, he was proud of, the things that he wasn't so proud of, the life that he had on the road, how hard it was. It was very, very honest. And I really like that, because if you're going to write a book, you have to be able to take the good with the bad and everything in between. But I also think if I could help somebody else on their journey, if I could share stuff like, things that I've never shared before with people, and things about, growing up and what it was like to grow up in this incredible family, but also like when my dad was gone most of my childhood. He was gone 280, 300 days a year, but just trying to provide for us. And when I was a kid, I never understood why my dad was gone so much. We always just missed our dad, and we would spend maybe 50 days of the year with him. And that's not a lot. Wow. But I now understand that my dad was just doing everything he could to just feed us, and my dad would work through injuries, and he would work through all sorts of stuff, because back in the 80s, when you didn't work, you didn't get paid, so there's just a lot of things that I would love to reflect on. And, even with how my dad passed away, there's just so much I learned about it. I've learned so much since he's passed away, and I just have a whole different respect and perspective on my dad's life and his death as well.
Right. I was gonna say Bret Hart's book made me cry. It's the only book to ever make me cry. My last question is, and this is a good one, favorite Hart match?
I think my favorite Hart match would have to be, I say this all the time, but Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, WrestleMania 10. My favorite place in the world to wrestle is Madison Square Garden, because it just has so much meaning for me and so much meaning for my family. But I felt like that match was such a turning point for Owen in his career, and Bret fought really, really hard for Owen to have that match, because it wasn't supposed to be Owen. It was supposed to be someone else. And Bret fought like crazy for Owen to have that moment. And sometimes you need somebody to fight for you. You need somebody to help you. And that makes me even emotional talking about it. But Owen may never have had that chance to shine, because he wasn't chosen. He wasn't picked to be the guy. And it's hard when your brother is Bret Hart and you kind of feel like you're in his shadow. But Owen, we really got to see Owen come to life in that storyline and in that match. And it was just such a simple, beautiful story that everybody could understand. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, you could understand that story. But I'm just so happy that Owen got that chance to shine on that beautiful stage and tell this incredible story with Bret. And when people tell me that they want to get into the business, especially if they've never they're an athlete and they're just getting started, or they just got hired, or they want to start this journey in professional wrestling, or if they're a student of the game, I say, watch that match. Watch Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, WrestleMania 10. Because if you're a student of the game, you can learn so much about that match and the simple storytelling in that match. To me, that's my favorite Hart family match. I'm so proud of both of them for that.
I want to thank you for the time. I know you're super busy out in Saudi, and like you always do, such a great representative for the WWE. Thank you for everything you've done in your career. Thank you for being a friend. And, I can't wait for the next chapters. Like, what you're going to do next in the WWE ring. What could happen after the book? Who knows? Maybe even a hosting gig on Busted Open at somewhere down the road. You
I'm
never
so
know.
down for that. I'm so down.
But thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and good luck today.